The generic term is leader versus follower. It's not necessarily always follower, but it's now with hierarchies, the way they work, there's a lot of even level. There's also hierarchies. It depends on how you view leadership.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, there's something special that separates a leader from the pack. You look at every organization, you look at Army, Navy, you look at military, and you think of companies, it's not that far off. You don't have 1,000 lieutenants and one foot soldier. There's a reason
Mhm.
why there's a select few that go into the ranks of leaders and go beyond. In your mind, when you see somebody that's able to progress to a leader, I presume that it's somebody that is motivated. It is somebody that does not accept failure as a lifestyle, are able to invoke it within themselves, and then are able to bring it out from others. True or false?
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. And those tie into the things we talked about before and some of the other, I guess, factors. So, great leaders, not only do they ask why are we doing this, and share that vision with the people that want to rally beside them and run forward to an objective or a goal or a magnificent obsession, I've heard it referred to as, right? They spread this magnificent obsession amongst other people, and that's what creates the leadership, is that people choose to follow. Now, there's also organizations like the military, and historically corporations were, 80-90% of the CEOs were from the military, because that was that time in that generation, I guess, but it was the discipline that they got in the military, one of the key topics of our conversation today, right? So it's a discipline, the magnificent obsession, and also the ability to ask why not. So if you look at somebody like Jack Welch, amazing at GE what he did. He was more hardcore discipline, and he always wanted to ask why. Why are we doing this like this? So he's kind of more of the old school. If you look at the new school, still the same fundamental principles apply. Elon Musk, he's very disciplined, very determined, and very driven, like the 3Ds of the motivation in my mind. And he's got this magnificent obsession, and he always asks, why not? Why can't I, build a Tesla and have charging stations around the world? Why can't I do SpaceX and send people to the moon? No, yes, I can. And that's the difference, because they're not willing to let the bungee cord pull them down to the average. They choose the extra in everything they do in life to be extraordinary. And I think that's really the key driver.
I've heard before people telling me I can't be a leader because I wasn't born into it. You're either from birth a leader or you're not. And I chuckled the same way as you, because I don't know too many people that from birth became leaders. And I
Mhm.
think today of people that I know growing up that I see today as leaders, and they sure as heck were not leaders when they were 5, 10, and 15. In
Mhm.
fact, they were the more quieter ones and the ones absorbing information, but they weren't the outspoken ones. It's that listening versus speaking. And a lot of leaders I know that are very successful today did that because they actually learned more how to listen rather than to lead.
Absolutely. I think that ties into the difference between responding versus reacting. So our society is very reaction based. And this is by Urban Meyer, I think his name is, Above the Line. He wrote a book, and he talks about the difference between responding and reacting. So these people that are more reflective and full of thought, as you've referred to them, that they don't just speak out just like that. It's not that they're not capable of being eloquent and speaking well, but they choose to be they absorb information, they assess it, they ask why, and then they respond as opposed to reacting. So I think that's the key that they possess, that sets them up to be leaders in the future.
And there's two kinds of leaders in this day and age, and we won't get too much into politics wise, but I've seen the kind of leaders that said, I'm speaking logic to you. I can show you the facts. This makes sense. So you should definitely listen to me and follow me because I'm showing you the course. Versus
Homework.
somebody who comes and says, I know what you want. I hear you. Let me give you what you want. And unfortunately, we're based in a society today that I can sit back and watch. I'm saying, they're literally like feeding the sheep, and the sheep are just following. They're following. They're loving it. And it's because people want what they want, not what's good for them or what's logical.
Mhm.
And it blows my mind. And that's when it becomes the whole wolf versus sheep. Are you able to see beyond that and make your own assessments, or are you going to follow the herd? And it's very hard sometimes for people to break out of that herd mentality.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. Hmm, definitely, that's a tough one.
It's just it's obviously we can't go there too much based on where life is at today, but definitely speaking to other leaders, people have to be recognizant of that, and I wish more society would wake up to that and be able to say, you know what, I want to think for myself. I'm going to make my own assessments and not just do what I'm being told. And that's
Mhm.
where I can tell you when I operate a business and I have an employee comes to me and says, you know what, I don't agree with this structure at all. I'm like, you know what? That's fantastic. I don't mind at all. Second guess all you want, but I don't want to receive complaints. When you have solutions, come back to me.
Yes,
That's
yes.
all I want. And that's one of the things that I think I hit my boiling point for many years as far as trying to lead is people love to complain, but put them in the driver's seat. It's not so easy, is it? So I always encourage people, you know what? If you do want to make a change, don't present the issue, present the solution. Put the time into that.
Absolutely. I mean, at one point in my career, I owned multiple body shops, so auto body collision.
I thought you meant
And
like body shops. Sorry.
no, no, no. I go to the shop to build the body. So in these body shops, I think at one point I had almost 20 employees, and I had this expression, if you will, that I would say to them. I welcome feedback. I welcome challenge. I welcome other ways to doing things. Ask me why. I can't preach it and not allow other people to apply it to me. Ask me why. But to your point, bring me a solution. Don't come complaining. And if you have a complaint, no problem. But then I'll find a solution. If you don't like it, give me a better one. So until you tell me another way, it's my way. So maybe that's a bit of a dictator in some ways, but I framed it in the sense of, listen, somebody's got to drive us forward and lead. But I'm open-minded. Until then, don't complain about my choices unless you're going to offer alternatives.
But if
Heavy is
you
the crown.
but if you can show an employee you bring the solution, we will talk about it, and it makes sense. We will invoke this fairly quickly, if not very quickly. That blows their mind. They're like, wow, I have a tangible say in this. That's very empowering. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's a really good way to motivate. But again, you need people to take a vested interest and think of where they work as their own business.
Mm-hmm.
My mother used to tell me an expression when we would be someplace and the employee was just very lax, and they said it's not their mother or father's business. They don't care. You know what? If the place burns down, they'll just go get another job. Whereas you see people that literally treat the business like it's their own. You know, that's where, from an employer standpoint and from a business standpoint, when your employees have skin in the game, so to speak, and they have vested interest to see you succeed, they will succeed. I think that's a very good, formable relationship if people can see that big picture.
Well, well, this is the thing too. I think it starts with the business owner or leader's mindset in the sense of I started a little boutique consulting company. I still have a few clients, 12 years ago, I think it was now. So one of my long-term clients, family business, they built it from the ground up, first generation immigrants. I have huge respect for them and what they achieved. But oftentimes they complain to me about the staff. And I try to tell them, but they're very set in their mentality. I try to tell them, listen, if they were like you, they would be you. Do you understand? They wouldn't be working for you if they were just like you. So you can't expect them to be just like you. And as soon as you start to accept them for who they are and what they're doing, your mindset shifts and it opens up to be more like yours, saying, hey, no problem. You know what? I understand you're not necessarily going to see things my way and understand to the same level because we're operating in different areas. But here, let me help you and show you, as opposed to being frustrated and saying, why can't you get this? Why don't you care enough? Don't worry about that. They're not you, or they would be you. And I think that's something they got to get their mind right about the staff. At least in small to medium-sized businesses, I find this because it doesn't have that formalized corporate structure to kind of create process around that.
And that's where it's so refreshing for companies. Instead of trying to slot an employee into the role you think that you want done, figure out their strengths and create a position that plays to their strengths. You're going to be so much better off.
Absolutely. And you know what's really cool about that? Sorry, just a side
No,
thought
for
is
sure.
There was a philosophy at one point about, oh, identify your strengths and then fix your weaknesses. I used to believe in that. And now I've shifted to no, 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 no. You know, you can spend X units of energy trying to fix a weakness, or you can say, I'll make sure it's at a sufficient level, but I'll put my energy into my strengths. And I think that's the key thing is people also need to identify their strengths, which would also help them, you know, focus on success versus failure. Because too often, if we go back, just touch on that topic, I'm not strong enough. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough this. I don't have enough that. No, what do you have and build off that?
Like George, I can't draw a straight line for my life, you know, and I'm never going to be a
You
good
don't need
dancer.
to.
Why bother? I could go spend 1,000 hours learning how to dance and I still will never be that great. Or I could take those 1,000 hours, pour into stuff that I'm really interested in or good at. I'll be so much more ahead. I agree with you because trying to just be well rounded ain't going to get you there, you know? But that's where I think people need to really embrace their strengths, really identify what they're good at, what they're passionate about, try to steer that towards their life. People that have a job but do something they absolutely love to do, it doesn't feel like you're working ever, you know, and that's a
Mm-hmm.
hard concept people to grasp because you know there's this mentality as well. How's work? Oh, it's so bad. I'm so tired. My boss is this, my work is that. Well, why is that? You know, your job is what your job is. It's a question of how you perceive it. But if you doing something and you perceive it to be great, you jump out of bed, you're like, "Yay, I can't wait to get there." I don't see that many people that jump out of bed with that kind of energy, and they should.
But Jonathan, the devil I know is so much safer. It's so much safer than the devil of making a change. Or what if I actually succeed and I have to be something I don't know if I can be? It's fear. So fear plays into it and keeps people in failure to a large degree. And I mean, I touch on this in my book I'm writing as well. It holds back sales professionals so badly. And the book's not all about mindset, but I mean, you can't talk about, you know, technical skills and things without understanding the mind as a foundation or part of the integral whole. So I think fear really plays into it, whether it stops realtors from making that call, knocking on the door, asking for the business, or salespeople just asking for the close, because we don't want rejection. And in fact, we're indoctrinated to fear rejection, to fear judgment by society right from a young age. I remember this. I mean, you know, I was a chubby kid, so I got picked on. So I got used to trying to avoid people making fun of me because I'm trying to avoid pain, right? So I don't speak up.
1,000%.
I don't express my intelligence or anything until those that are blessed to reach this point where they get comfortable in their own skin stop fearing fear. This is me. Unfortunately, I think in a lot of cases, you know, it takes hitting your 40s maybe before you start to realize that, you know, but darn it. I mean, if I had a child, I would do my best to get them to that point at a younger age because it'll set them up for more success.